For the rest of the show, I'm joined by policy strategist and group CEO of the Global Investment and Trade Company, Baba Yusuf, as well as Peter Ameh, National Secretary of the Coalition of United Political Parties. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Pleasure to be here.
I'll start with you, Mr. Ameh. The coalition is the Coalition of United Political Parties, CUPP, was quoted a couple of days ago as saying that Nigeria is a crawling giant at 64. It was a quote attributed to your spokesman, Mark Adebayo. So I would like to start, what exactly does the CUPP do, and of what use is it?
We've been here for quite a while,
yes.
And one of the issues is to bring a coalition of like-minded political parties like the ADC, the APP, the Action Alliance, and lots of other political parties to come together, in order to, look at, forming a formidable opposition, in reviewing the activities of those who are in government and looking at Nigerian issues in an holistic format, in the way that we continue to profile solutions that will better the lots of our people and improve, the democratic practice that we have in the country.
Mr. Baba Ahmed, the reason why I asked that question is that we have a political space that is challenged, like Ms. Ankyo Briggs used the word political madness, and that's why I asked, what are all these parties for and the coalition? So he talked about profiling solutions. Do you think these people have been active enough, for us to have this kind of situation all over the country?
Thank you, Constance, for having me. It's a sign of the times. Politically in Nigeria, I keep on saying that we are still emerging, we are still maturing as a polity. I don't have a problem with the coalitions and the formations of pressure groups. First of all, to try to, hold government to account and make political leaders, whether at federal and subnationals, to do the needful. But then, if you ask me, the impacts have just been marginal. Suffice it to say, most of these formations are formations that initially will have this, high-level objective, and then later you see the groups morphing into some interest within the political game, whether with the ruling party or opposition party. Of course, it's also a sign of preparation for 2027. People are taking positions and trying to form some structures, kind of quasi-structure, to see where they will lean to build up to the elections. The only concern I have is that these pressure groups should focus on making the government of the day to deliver the mandates, rather than, taking positions to see how they can, pitch for the 2027 elections without prejudice to the objectives of the CUPP.
Mr. Ameh, when you think about it, you are neck deep in politics. And can you see why people would view the current crop of politicians and political parties as highly problematic? The rascality, the brigandage, the indiscipline that is happening across board. Do you see why people will say it's a problem? What is the point of having political parties or coalitions and we are still in this type of situation? What do you say to that?
I think the track record of CUPP and other political association, it speaks volumes. CUPP is not a child of, this year, of last year. We've been there since 2019, and we've been working assiduously. Everybody who read the political space will see our contribution and what we've done, with other stakeholders, critical stakeholders, in trying to work. And if you look at the generalization of saying that there are politicians that are, unruly, that have mismanaged our political space, it's not fair to other politicians that have acted responsibly. Because if we want to treat an issue, we should go straight, be straightforward. We know those who are causing problems within our political space. We know those who are not managing their attitude well when it comes to, management of power and all of that. We are not here to want to, our name is very, very key. You look at the Coalition of United Political Party. It's an opposition political organization. It's not something that you can just wake up tomorrow morning. And you've not seen since when CUPP was formed to say they adopt a government of the day. What we do is very critical in the democratic space. Democracy is beyond speaking. It's part of, it's key that we push people to participate, because without participation, you will know how strong, the interest will be. Our political space have been left so much to those who have hijacked the process. And a lot of people have shown some sign. You can't even blame politicians alone. There are a lot of Nigerians who have shown signs of it's not their business. And because of that, you leave this process in the hands of, you could look at what Plato said, that if you say that politics is a dirty game, you don't want to participate, then you have people without moral standards, without sense of reasoning to take over the space and then manage governance for us. For us, this country belongs to all of us. It's a space that we must work every day assiduously and make sure that the country delivers the dividends of democracy to the masses. Because the masses are at the major, you can't allow the microscopic few hold on to power, manage our resources, for their own selfish benefit. And then you look at the mass of Nigerians, a lot of our people suffering without adequate facility, infrastructure that will boost life and give them the necessary benefit in the democratic system.
Let's turn to Rivers State for a moment. You were here, you listened to what Ms. Ankyo Briggs said. There was a protest today to boycott the elections. How do you see that move by a faction, of the APC and PDP to ensure that elections, local government elections, do not hold in Rivers State?
Well, for that, let us use a case study, Constance. This is not novel in our political history. If you go back to 2003, there was a governor, His Excellency Rashid Ladoja, who came on board, of the PDP at that time. Of course, he had a benefactor called Alhaji Lamidi Adedibu, that President Obasanjo used to call the garrison commander. He came on board 2023, May. By August 2003, by August 2006, they had fallen apart, right? And then the PDP at national were supporting Lamidi. I remember the chairman, Ahmad Ali, was telling Governor Ladoja to take instructions from Lamidi Adedibu. And that is how, at the end of the day, Rashid had to leave the party. Just this kind of scenario. Local government elections came up, and 16 local governments moved to Action Congress. Like Rashid Ladoja moved to Action Congress, and of course, won the election as a sitting governor. Now, what happened to PDP? PDP boycotted the elections at that time. But what happened is that Ladoja could not secure the ticket. Could not win the election in 2007. He lost the election to his deputy because his deputy was able to leave, Alao Akala, and became the flag bearer of PDP. At the end of the day, Alao Akala became governor and now upturned all the AC, local government chairman. So if we bring it back to this scenario, there's a little bit of difference. One, in terms of the kind of president we have, different personality types from Obasanjo and President Tinubu. And also personality types of warring factions. Excellency Wike, Fubara, Ladoja, and Lamidi. Now, the fight in Rivers is hotter than the fight that used to be in Oyo, probably because of the warring factions. So I reckon there may be an attempt from the federal level to see how that election may not take place because of the toxic nature of the politics in Port Harcourt. And it is also possible that the election may hold. But I can tell you this is just another episode, in a long-standing political tussle in Rivers State that will become a case study at the end of the day in our political history.
Some people have even said that that election might not hold. We do not know. We're not speculating, but, there's a lot of tension going on. You have done a lot of work in the opposition. What do you think are the key factors that are driving political crisis, not only in Rivers, but across the country?
Across the country, it's about the system. If the system is not properly placed and properly structured to deliver for the people, you see, the local government is the third tier of government in Nigeria, and this reform came in 1976, local government reform, and that was one of the most drastic reform we had, that gave local government all the necessary autonomy that they needed. When we got into this current Fourth Republic, and you talk about Section 162 that talks about local government financial autonomy, and Section 197 that talks about CX. CX are one of the things we must put in proper perspective is that CX are not subordinate to the Independent National Electoral Commission. We have 36 election management body that are for state, and then we have one that is national, which is INEC. And there's nowhere in the Constitution that they have to take permission to conduct an election. I believe this election should hold because of the Supreme Court judgment that has given financial autonomy to local government in Nigeria, and guarantee of tenure for local government executive, because local government have suffered so much, being the arm of government, the tier of government that is closer to the people. It has really suffered because of lack of financial autonomy, local government state and joint account, that has affected the simple and processing of local government administration in the country. What is happening in Rivers is an eye-opener for all of us. Nigerians must know, and those in Rivers must participate in the Saturday election to be able to give that freedom, that autonomy that local government deserve in this country. Because if we don't allow these elections to hold, it means that we are turning the decision of the Supreme Court. And if you look at the Justice Igwe's judgment that has given authority, that has given approval for this local government election to be conducted, forget about the misunderstanding, say, oh, there's no voter register, there's voter register. The CS, State Independent Electoral Commission, had all the authority and everything to conduct the 5th of October local government election. And he should be allowed to conduct the election for the good governance and development of the local government across Rivers State and across Nigeria. If you look at what is happening today in all the state of the Federation, from Abia to Benue, there's local government election going on, because it is clear that within the next 3 months, any local government, any state that does not control local government will not have, access to the allocation that is accrued to that local government. Even Benue has declared a public holiday. Rivers have declared 2 days public holiday. This should be honored and should be respected. Whoever has any grievances after the local government election, you can go to either the tribunal or take your case up to the Supreme Court. Okay. Because I think that any election that is in process already, based on our laws, should be allowed to take its focus.
Baba, what do you think the role of resources, oil, money, how they fuel the crisis that we are seeing?
Well, it's all about the money. It's all about the resources. All the fight to take control of structures and ensure whether you stay in power or you have your stooge to stay in power, if it reneges, you ensure it's out, is all about money. It's not about good governance, Constance, and that is the truth. I hear my co-panelists talking about good politicians. Yes, they are. But when you look at it on the balance of skill, the bad ones outweigh the good ones. They have practically diluted the good ones. And even those that are there are practically struggling. So it's all about resources. And now, if I will add to this issue of local government elections, I wonder how Benue, Kano has had its own, or is having its own, and other states, Bauchi had their own, and you will now isolate Rivers and say Rivers shouldn't have elections, to take place, obviously because of the reasons and the parties in dramatis personae involved in Rivers. Suffice it to say, one of the game plans is possibly, the withdrawal of local government allocations if the party, the federal government is not interested, which ironically, or it's a paradox, that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was the victim in 2003. I want to see how he plays out this, being the victim or understanding that. But then for Fubara, he has a playbook, peradventure that happens, how President Tinubu as governor then was able to weather the storm and outlive Obasanjo and get the funds back after his administration. What is important is this, for me. Political tutelage and political leadership, for those that follow political leaders, should understand that when you ride the tiger, you may end up in the stomach of the tiger. The argument is, do I now say I will not take Wike's offer and lose the opportunity of being a good governor? Or do I take it and have a 4 years of rancorous situation like this? And that is what politicians should look at when they position to take a position, because this is happening already. Benue State is happening that. We have subliminal issues in Kaduna State, and you can go on and on and on. It is clear that the political leaders do not have the interest of the people at heart, because if they do, the gladiators in Rivers are elders and leaders of their people. They should be concerned with the socio-economic vagaries that is devastating everywhere, rather than the personal interest of the people. But you can see what is going on. The drag on the governor is distracting him, and no matter how good he wants to do, like I gave you the scenario of Rashid Ladoja and others, it will be very difficult for him to be a governor that delivers fully his mandate. Right. He will be hamstrung.
Baba mentioned President Tinubu and what has happened so far. The interplay between the state and federal politics, we've seen it again and again. Is there a way out of this?
There's no way. The issue is that with the federal, you see what the federal used to play the state politics is because they're in charge of the police, they're in charge of a lot of other, security apparatus that is used to manage, our security architecture. And that is why we are saying that if you have a country and you really want it to work, you know, there's some level of impartiality that must come to play when you hold public office. And the mistake most people make is that when they are appointed by an appointing authority, they just continue and conclude that they are beholden to that appointing authority. But they have forgotten that the appointment is derived from the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and their responsibility is to be fair to every Nigerian and work in a way that the interest of all is protected in the process of carrying out their official function. But what we have today, you find out, in fact, it was so embarrassing when I saw the INEC rec making press statement about voter register. It has nothing to do with the local government election. There's no subordinate relationship between the National Independent Electoral Commission and State Independent Electoral Commission. They are two separate bodies who derive power from the Constitution, who have authority to conduct elections at various levels. And for us to be able to get this thing right, one of the things you see, this implication about the conflict that you see, is as a result that we have a system that does not deliver credible election to our people. It talks about people, you know, the bad politicians diluting the whole process. But this process is because we have that system that people cannot go to the polls and determine the outcome of an election. That those who now count the vote at the collation center now determine the end. And that's why we are saying, if you have governors who are planning to run it, who are trying to conduct election, you should allow a free and fair process to it to happen. We can't continue to say you are boycotting an election and you're also protesting for the election not to hold. You are heightening the level of heat within the state. We should not allow a group of persons or wherever they are, whether they are in Sokoto, whether they are in Rivers, wherever they find themselves, to hold our people to ransom just because of their own political interests.
You see, Baba, how do you assess the role of political elites and power brokers in either resolving or prolonging the crisis? Not only in Rivers, but across, because it's happening. We're seeing it again and again.
Well, the truth is that it's going to continue because of the type of politics we run in this country, Constance. Like you said, it's everywhere, and the modus operandi, the playbook, I took you back as far back as 2003. Don't forget Governor Chris Ngige. It was so bad that he was abducted by an AIG at that time. And that is how people can go to hold on to the structures of power. This is the key critical success factor for them to hold on to power, whether at subnational or at national. But let me just digress to add to this conversation about INEC. It's very important to me because I wrote about it when this Supreme Court judgment came, and I raised a red flag to Nigerians. We don't attend public hearings. We don't engage in the legislative process. And I'm speaking to the elites of this country. We have been serially underserving Nigeria. When we blame people who are taking spaghetti on the queue, what about us that are sitting and doing analysis on TV and watching elections, sipping on juice? We don't participate in the electoral process. One of the ways to do that, because we are subject matter experts, is to participate. What am I saying? There is an attempt already, and it is part of the legislative process, to take the powers of INEC from the state to the federal. And I wrote in that column of that day that if that happens, you can imagine what will happen to a Fubara or to other. I believe there should be principles of separations of powers, but we should not throw away the baby with the bathwater to the extent that what we are trying to run away from the state, we now overload it to the center. Because when you have a president that has 774 local government that is their paymaster, then we have a problem to the extent that the electoral empire is also domiciled at the center. When I'm a proponent of deconstructing INEC, as it were, they are struggling to run national elections, and you are going to key in 774 local governments. Let us rise against that and ensure that the INEC state with the state. I will land with this. It is also our responsibility to hold the governors to account. 65% of our underperformance as a nation, I put it solely on the doors of the governors of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So we must have peripheral vision on the governors and how they govern, to the extent that they have their powers, whether it is legislative, executive, or judiciary.
So when it comes to the State Electoral Independent Commission and what is going on with INEC at the federal level, are you surprised it is happening under President Bola Tinubu's administration? A president who was once a governor, who was a so-called Democrat, you know, an activist for democracy. Are you surprised by anything that is going on?
Why should I be surprised? I saw the outcome of the 2023 election. I saw the the way it was approached by the APC and his party. I saw the threat that people suffered in Lagos and everywhere. I saw the tribal, game that was brought to play on the game. And for me, like I've said, I've been part of the people who have been pushing that the Independent National Electoral Commission itself should be unbundled in line with Justice Iwe panel report for electoral reform. It should be unbundled to have a political party registration commission, political party management, and how they call it, the election commission, and then also have INEC itself, they're only responsible for conduct of election. And the problem we've suffered, for my brother here, the problem we have suffered in this country, like you have pointed out slightly, is the fact that there's no mass participation in how people get involved, on how to be able to manage the affairs of this country. On election day, you could just be coming from your polling unit, and you see a lot of your friends who are very well placed and calling you that, are we winning? Why are we winning while you are told me you are not voting? So, and you find out that those who don't vote ultimately, affect the outcome of the election, and are the people who have contributed to this level of bad governance that we're expressing in this country. I'm not surprised, because I think that if you want to do something right, there's a level of interference that should be played. Well, so far as we are talking about 32 cases, it has been filed, and over 32 ex parte order and interlocutory injunction have been gotten for Federal High Court in a case, in an election that is supposed to be happening in a state. And CX are not federal executive body; they are state executive body. So their cases should have been, taken to state judiciary, but they have come to the federal Abuja court here, and they are getting all sorts of ex parte, to stop an election. Past many years, you cannot have a federal high court that is a subordinate jurisdiction to the Supreme Court, taking decision contrary to the decision of the Supreme Court in our country, and nobody is saying anything. You cannot have a process where, since we started having problem from Anambra and Co., another part of the state, where you find out that election, people use a certain order to stop the election that is already in process. And Supreme Court has emphatically said, straightforward, that if election is already in process, or a primary of a political party is already in process, or a convention of a political party, there's no court that should bring an order to stop such process from proceeding to its final end. But we're having today now where judges are making pronouncement from Federal High Court to say that the election should not hold in Rivers State. What is the interest in this state? And I agree, you cannot now say, I've argued on this station before to say that INEC should conduct election. But I came out of this station and I sat with a lot of my friends, senior lawyers, and said, no, you cannot transfer such body. What we should do is to look how to strengthen CX and give it that level of autonomy that is required to conduct a credible election for the benefit of our people at the local level. Political
participation, you've indicted a lot of people. Then others will say, we don't have confidence in the process, so.
You see, that is where we have a problem. You and I have a problem, and I call it the hypocrisy of our expectations as Nigerian elites. We are the educated ones, we are the exposed ones. In fact, we are also responsible for the level of corruptions in Nigeria, Constance. We are the deputy directors, the CEOs, the chairman of the board. We cannot be playing ostrich in this game. We are the ones that are operating, whether it is in INEC or in the civil service. We enable whatever is going on. The politicians are not working and conjuring magic. We are their critical partners, either in progress or otherwise. And therefore, point is this political process can only get better if the elites participate in the electoral process, legislation, election, and enlightenment of the people at the lower cadre of society. Unless we do that, and also playing our roles, whether it is in the civil service or public sector or private sector, because all this we are accusing of politicians doing, we are doing worse in the corporate world or in the private sector. So it is the erosion of our value systems that we need to address, and the elite has that core responsibility. We may be small in number, but the impacts we make are going to be very big, and we should hold ourselves to account as we hold the politicians to account.
Briefly, last word, we're out of time. Briefly.
I have to deviate a little bit. I think the problem of this country starts from the head.
Okay.
If you have a president that is not acting in line, working to make sure that things work right, and is involved in corrupt practices, or other subordinate, other units will follow. We need to have a system where the head will work, for the benefit of every mankind. You can't talk about a director in an office when a Senate president will send a message and you say he won't do it. They will retire that person. Okay. So we need to start from the president. The president must show example, must lead by example, and must set Nigeria straight. And if we don't have that, we have to continue to, have these situations that we have in our hand.
Well, agree to disagree. Peter, Ameh, Baba Yusuf, thank you so much for coming on the program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Do join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, it's goodbye and thank you for watching.